Massacre on the beat!
Welcome everyone to the Winlife podcast, where we focus on financial and personal growth. I'm your host, Elwin, and this is a new podcast we're starting where we're hoping to bring people together. We're hoping to help everyone level up, and we're just hoping to grow together. So today is actually a very special day. It is our first live interview, and I had to have someone very special come for this interview. It is my brother, Shane Tollberg. So Shane Tollberg is a day trader and investor who has spent the last 5 years mastering his craft and growing his businesses. Shane is a Minnesota native who has studied at North Central University. I'm excited to welcome Shane to the show as the first guest on the Winlife podcast. Shane, how you doing today?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to drop new content and reach more people. So I feel we got so many gems, so much knowledge to drop. And I just been trying to find that right platform, that right venue. And I think we may have found it. So yeah, just happy to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for coming. I'm working on adding value, and one of the biggest principles that have stuck with me is that your network is your net worth. So I do my best to make sure I surround myself with people who I know are headed in a direction that I'm headed in, or a direction that I want to be headed in, even if it's mainly a virtual community with the way things have been going this past decade. So yeah, just happy to have you as part of my network.
Yeah, same here.
I did want to just kind of pick your brain for a little bit. I won't hold you up too long today. But yeah, I know you're a trader. I know you're an investor, and I'm just curious, what are you trading in? What are you investing in generally? You don't have to get too in detail, but a lot of people hear about investors and traders, and they really don't even know what that means. And it seems so far-fetched. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I kind of started when I was like 18. I opened up just like a regular investing account and invested in like index funds and stuff for the long term. And then while I was at school or university, I had a friend of mine who taught me about like active trading. And I kind of at first was like super skeptical of it because everything I had read was like, don't do this, you'll never make money. Nobody makes money doing it. And so from there, I started out originally trading just Forex actively. And from there, I kind of branched out over time. And now I still trade Forex, but I also actively trade stocks and options as well as futures. And then along with that, kind of like long-term investing, I still do invest some in index funds, but also some individual stocks, mainly from like a value investing approach with some focus on growth and dividends as well. And then I don't actively trade it really, but also invest a little bit in crypto too for the long term. So kind of a little bit of everything, but the three main focuses for actually trading are still Forex and then futures and options really.
That's awesome. That actually transitions me perfectly into what I wanted to ask you next. And it is we talk about trading and investment. And when people ask me what the difference is between trading and investment, to me, I really see no difference other than it's a threshold based on the duration of how long you hold something. So if you hold a position for 5 minutes, it is an investment. It's just a short-term, a very, very short-term investment. But with that said, I want to ask you this. If you had $1 million to invest, what would you invest it in? How would you split up that investment, that amount of money into a portfolio?
What I'd probably do is, so I'd put probably like 10% of it into crypto. So 100,000. And then I'd put 80% of that crypto amount into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then the 20% use kind of more for smaller projects. I'd probably put another 10% into like an actively traded account. So like short-term trading, whether that's day trading, swing trading, but just more short-term and actively managed. And then with the remaining 80%, I'd probably go half and half with like passive investing and then like active investing. So both like long-term, like multi-year approaches.
Right.
But about 40% of the a million, so 400,000 into probably just some index funds, largely just like overall market index funds, maybe a little emerging markets, or maybe a small percentage in like bonds, but overall about 40% into index funds and then 40% into like an actively managed long-term portfolio, which like I do now, focus that around value investing. So finding undervalued companies that have potential for multiple years to come to, I don't know, as the saying goes, return to value or go back to what their inherent value is based on their financials and stuff.
Right. So what I see you're saying is you definitely want to diversify. That's something that we talk about a lot. And what I see separates the traders, the real traders, from the gamblers. I'll see a lot of people that come up that want to trade, or, they hear about trading and they want to figure out how to get in and invest. And then, they hear about these memes, the Doge coins, the AMCs. And I'm not saying something like AMC is not a valid stock or investment, but the nature of these stocks, I guess we call them hype stocks. And then they throw all their money in. I even had an acquaintance they invested in AMC and they said, I need this money to double up by next week because I'm going on vacation. No thought of capital gains, taxes, none of that, just that I need a quick flip. So what I'm seeing, what you're saying is we need to diversify and we need to think long-term, but we do need to have a balance because you do have more short-term methods or vehicles for trading and investing as well.
Yeah. And I think like another thing is with that is along with diversification is just like sticking to what you know. And so with all the like the hype things and like the meme stocks, like there was a time when GameStop was definitely undervalued and a solid investment, but then it goes up so much that then people get like addicted to it, or like the Dogecoin stuff. And so personally, I just avoided all of that. And I think it's important to like not just diversify, but also stick with what you know and like keep your main thing the main thing. Because you can often get super distracted by following the hype stuff or chasing after the next big thing. And all of it is definitely from a standpoint of like a gambler's mentality. And it's all there to kind of distract you from focusing on what you know, what you're good at, and essentially mastering your craft and keeping that in the forefront of your mind and what you're working on.
Yeah, I think you hit on some key points there, especially knowing that, like you said, mastery, when you have that skill set with a certain maybe stock or maybe Forex pair, if you just repeat that day after day, you're going to be able to just crush it and be so familiar with it. Like one of the traders I look up to, Oliver Velez, who's been trading before we were born. He's been day trading Apple for 35, 40 years. And he just extracts money out the market on a daily basis. And yeah, he invests in Bitcoin and Ethereum and he's diversified in those, but his bread and butter of Apple and maybe one or two other stocks, he never changes that. And those are the type of moguls, the type of, leaders that I look up to, the people that have proven it year after year. And, they're showing you what they're doing, because we know, like you said, with the hype and the meme coins, what comes with it is a bunch of fake gurus, right? On the internet,
Yeah.
on YouTube. So we need to really avoid that mentality. And I think a lot of people do come into the market, into this world with that get rich quick mentality. And, you really get humble. You really get humble quickly.
Yeah, I think overall too, that's kind of like just a byproduct of like American culture. Like we're a very like gambling kind of culture. We have like Las Vegas, Atlantic City, and places like that. And we even saw it like with everything shut down and stuff. Like sports betting was huge the past year and a half or so, and then all the hype things. It's like people are finding these outlets to try and get rich quick without like the regular casino route. And I mean, it provides more liquidity to the market, I guess, but it's not good for the average person.
Definitely not. With that said, are there any like moguls or traders that you look up to? Or like, maybe someone you recommend that people kind of follow their moves?
I don't know if there's necessarily like one specific person or even like two or three. But what I would recommend is there's a book series which I've read. I haven't read all of them, but I've read a couple of them, and it's the Market Wizard series by Jack Schwager. And so all of these people, he's essentially he interviews all these traders, hedge fund managers, investors, and stuff. And the books are pretty long. Like the one I just read was like 400 pages or so. But there's really great insights in all of them, and you get different perspectives from different viewpoints and different investing styles. So those books are really good. And even when I read them when I first started out, I didn't understand a lot of what was talked about, but a lot of the principles stuck with me, and I still hold to this day. So I think instead of looking to like one or two moguls, I always like revert back to that book series and kind of pick the brains of a whole group of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. That gives you more perspective, that it takes a village. So, and I think that's awesome too, because us as traders, us as investors, we do need to find our own way, our own style, our own strategy, our own portfolio makeup. So I think that's the same thing I do. I look to different people for knowledge, even like you. You've given me different tidbits, or I'm able to bounce ideas off of you. So you may not be like this famous hedge fund investor who's published and all that, but stuff I'm able to ask you. So I think that's important. We have the moguls, but also we have our mastermind groups. We have friends in the same network that are doing what we're doing, like we always talk about.
Yeah, I think it's important to like not just have the people who've like made it that you can look up to, but like people who are on the same path as you and who like at the same time are going through the same problems with you. I think it's helpful to have both perspectives of like people who have made it through and been through that before, but also the people who are like in the trenches with you right now, like going through the same things. It's really helpful to have both perspectives, helping you become like who you're trying to become.
Right. So, all right. So we say it takes a village. It's great to get knowledge from different people. Maybe even, we don't want to overload and study every guru in one day, but over time, right? We have time. We watch all these shows. We can read all these books. We can learn from all these people. But if you had to pick one, you get to have dinner with them. You know this question. You get to pick their brain, ask them anything. Who's that one person you're taking to dinner?
This is a tough question. I might have to say, I don't know. It's probably down to like a group of three that I could narrow it down to.
All right, I'll give you three.
All right, I'd probably have to go Paul Tudor Jones, and then George Soros or Stanley Druckenmiller. I don't know. I've read a lot about the threes like past, and they're all three famous investors and traders. And I don't know. It'd be from understanding like their past experience and all that, it'd be probably the three most interesting dinners I could have in learning from them, just like through their experience. And I mean, some of them have some notoriety behind them, and so I feel like it'd be the three most interesting dinners.
Right. And especially they all have experience where you could really, really pick their brain. So
yeah,
I like it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who mine would be yet. I've been trying to figure that out because I was like, I'm gonna ask Shane this question. But yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, I'm such a rap nerd. I want to say Jay-Z, but why?
yeah, it's like one of those things too, where it's like I could probably say someone more like under the radar that nobody's heard of, but trying to keep it like people that have like some sort of public image that people would know who they are and
Who
stuff.
would be the under the radar person?
Honestly, I don't even know his name. It's this guy I follow on Twitter. I can't remember his
it's
handle
always
off
the
the top
guy.
of my head. But
Always.
it's like nowadays it's all these like there's all these like anonymous accounts on the internet.
Right.
Like, I mean, you don't even know if they're legit or not at the end of the day. But I don't know. You pick up insights from people you don't even know who they are, which I guess is a blessing and a curse. You can't tell if they're actually verified with results or not. But
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always talk about one of the most important things we need as a skill is good discernment, because we're going to encounter so much info out there, and it's the era of information, the era of misinformation. So we have to constantly be building our ability to discern. So, I mean, shoot, if there's some anonymous Twitter user you can get insight from, why not? So,
yeah,
it's just you got to be careful out there. Yeah, this has been awesome. So I'm gonna try not to keep you too long. I did want to, ask you a few more things here. So you kind of went over what you would do with that $1 million, how you would invest, and different instruments you use, different methods. You said you do options, you do stocks, you day trade or swing trade Forex still. Let me ask you this. How do you come up with your business, your creative, your trade ideas?
I mean, I guess I could kind of walk through like my process before I enter a trade, I guess. So what I normally start out by just looking at the chart, essentially. So looking at the technicals. And I use a lot of like price zones along with like key price levels. So just like essentially like round numbers where price reverses off of a lot historically, as along with sometimes using moving averages, sometimes not. So I kind of just start out by looking at the chart, and then if it's a day trade, that's essentially all I'll go off of. Maybe I'll look and see if there's some like fundamental news release, and depending on if there is, take the trade or not, depending on how volatile it could be and how soon it is. But for like longer term trades or like swing trades, beyond just looking at the chart, I'll also kind of dig into the fundamentals as well, just because you're going to be in the trade longer. So the fundamentals really do matter a lot more, just because the nature of holding it over time, and generally price does react to charts, but it also a lot of times is fundamentally driven. And so for longer term trades, I'll start with the chart, and then I'll usually use the fundamentals to verify my bias that I have based on looking at the chart.
Does that go for stock investments or, mutual index funds, or do you handle those a little bit differently?
For like long-term investments, I don't really do any sort of analysis for me or for like when I invest in index funds. It's basically like like the portfolio I have for index funds, it's like mostly total stock market essentially, with a little bit of bonds mixed in, maybe like 10%, and then a little bit of like emerging markets mixed in. But for individual stock investing, that's pretty much essentially 100% fundamental for me.
Mhm.
Like I don't necessarily care what the chart looks like. I basically just look for companies that are undervalued compared to their fundamentals. So
Okay. But what if you see like a stock, great fundamentals you want to get in, they're undervalued, but they've been bullish, strong bull momentum 5 days. You waiting for some type of, you know, pullback, get a little discount, or just kind of depends on the moment.
um I don't know, for me, with it being like such a long-term approach, generally I don't know. I like the Warren Buffett saying, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's essentially like wanting to buy companies you're willing to own forever, essentially. And so obviously, once a company's, you want to buy it when it's undervalued, but then if it becomes overvalued, you generally do end up getting out. But at the time of buying the undervalued company, because it's a longer term approach and looking to hold it for 6 months, couple years, maybe even longer. I don't really care too much about the exact entry price, and so I'll average into my price over a span of a few weeks or so, maybe even a few months, depending on how long it stays undervalued. And so I'll have multiple entries on the same position, and so the actual buy-in price isn't as important to me as the fact that it's has the potential over time to increase.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think those details there are what a lot of people are looking to hear. So I was trying to get there for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm the same way. So would you say that you dollar cost average more so those investments, or you just kind of have your seasons with it? Because that's what I've been for me personally. I have my seasons with it, but I want to start sticking to some very strict plan where every week or every 2 weeks I put a specific amount in, where at least for these longer term holdings.
Yeah, for longer term holdings, I generally like dollar cost average into them. So even if I find like a company that I views undervalued, I don't just like go all in at once on it. I'll like keep buying specific amounts every week, and I mean coming back and checking, making sure like my fundamental bias is still there, and as long as it is, just keep putting the same amount in week after week. And even with like index funds or crypto, just every week or every month, like putting in the same amount, or I mean, even if your budget increases, increasing it or whatever, but being consistent and just no matter the price, as long as you view it as over time, it's going to go up, continuing to just dollar cost average into it.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, I guess I want to just ask you a few other things here. Because you talked about mastery. We were talking about
Mm-hmm.
being disciplined. You kind of went over your strategy, how you invest, what you're looking for, sticking to what you're doing. How important do you believe that strategy? I'm sorry, how important do you feel that being self-disciplined and working on that self-mastery are to this whole investment process?
Mm-hmm. I think it's like of the utmost importance, even in like all aspects of life. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be so disciplined that you never have fun and you're like horrible to be around because you're just so regimented and boring. So essentially, for me, how I keep it is like with all of my life, I have like on my weekdays, I'm extremely disciplined, and then on the weekends, I'll like relax a little, go have fun with friends, go do things, even maybe once or twice during the week. But generally, like during the weekdays, I'm extremely strict with um, every day, like even outside of trade, like I have a specific schedule for trading, sticking to that every single day, trying to go to the gym at the same time every single day, like eating healthy every single day, and just kind of keeping a routine. And I think just having that structure helps you to also be disciplined with your trading, because I mean anyone can have a trading plan, but the importance is being disciplined and actually sticking with it. And I think it helps making that a lot easier when you're just disciplined already with your life outside of trading. So having a real strict disciplined life, at least during the week. I mean, you can relax during like holidays, weekends, and stuff like that, of course, and even during the week sometimes. But just in general, being disciplined. And there's like the whole Jocko Willink quote, like discipline equals freedom. And to a large extent, that's most often the times, or most of the times, it turns out to be true.
Right. Yeah. It's that self-control, that having control of self, that's the freedom,
Yeah.
and just making do with your circumstances, making a reality of this environment, whatever your current situation is, that is a freedom in itself. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you how old you were.
I turned 23 back in July.
Okay. So I just want to make that clear that you're 23. And how long have you been trading? You said since 18?
Yeah, I started investing at 18, and then around like 20, I think I was when I started to like actively trade.
And when did you start to become super regimented and super disciplined, or was it more of a gradual thing?
Um, it was probably around the time I was like 19. I became like pretty disciplined. Like that's when I started going to the gym, like eating healthy. And at the time I was like working a lot while I was in school, because I was trying to like keep my like school loans like low. So I was working like 60 some hours a week. So I essentially had to be extremely disciplined between going to school full time and working that much. And then adding in trading, during that, you had to like, it just had to, like, everything had to be scheduled out and regimented and stuff. And so I don't know, essentially from around that time, or the whole time I've been trading, it's been pretty easy to be disciplined just because I kind of had to. Um, but I did notice, like, when I actually made the jump to full-time trading, it was a lot harder to remain disciplined, just because at that point, like, your entire entire schedule is essentially open, and you don't have to like answer to a boss. You don't have to like go to classes or anything. And so it's like you kind of have to like teach yourself to stick to a schedule. Like, yes, I have all this free, or like, yes, I have all this like available time now, but I also have to like regiment it so I actually keep the progress that I had before without having like the external disciplines there to keep it for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the most dope part, because that's where you really get to have fun and design your life how you want it. But there has to be structure, there has to be discipline there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like a lot of things you took, like you said, I had to do it. I didn't have a choice. I mean, you could have slacked, you could have not graduated, or, went to school, you could have worked 40 hours. It seems like you had a specific goal. I mean, you probably could have stayed in your parents' basement and you didn't have to do any of that. But just listening to you talk, it seems like it wasn't even an option. It wasn't even a choice. Like, this is just what you had to do to get where you're going, where you are, where you're headed.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always kind of had that like mindset from like, I guess the time I became like an adult when I turned 18. It I always kind of had like a trigger switch in my mind, or like a whatever the saying would be, and how like, okay, these are the things that I have to do, and it's like a second nature thing. Like I don't necessarily have to do these things, but like I have to do them. It's
Was
just
that
like
instilled from your parents, or like where'd you kind of get
um
that from?
I don't know. I guess it was. I've always been like super independent, like even growing up. Um, like I mean, I had like my parents there and stuff, but I've always just been extremely independent. So I think it just naturally comes from that, I guess.
Have you ever had a moment where you considered giving up or just quitting this journey altogether? And if you did, what got you back on track?
Um, yeah, I feel like I've definitely had like multiple of those moments. Like when I first started and I was like learning, it was a lot because I was like working so much. Like I was working roughly like 40 hours. When I first started trading, I was working like 40 hours at my job. And then I was doing like 20 hours of like side hustles to earn some extra money, like food delivery and all that fun stuff. And then I was like going to school, taking like full course loads, and then trying to like learn trading and like fit that in on top of that. Um, I mean, there was times where like for months on end, I'd sleep like 2 to 4 hours a night, and it was so taxing like mentally that there was times where like I didn't want to keep doing it. And then even been times like since going full time with it where like I've gotten like bored and just like in the mundane like process of things where I have to like take a step back, um, maybe like go out of town or just like take a week off.
Hawaii.
And yeah, the annual trip to Hawaii. Um, but just I feel like the way that I've always like gotten back to it is just taking time away, whether like taking an actual physical vacation or just taking a week off, and kind of letting your mind like reset and just going back to the basics, making sure you're like sleeping enough, eating well, like living a healthy lifestyle, like, and then clearing your mind and then coming back to it with like a fresh perspective a week or two later, has always like gotten me out of those ruts.
If you could go and tell your 18-year-old self, Shane opening his first brokerage account, getting ready to go to college, fresh out of high school, if you could tell him one piece of advice, what would it be?
Um, Probably that it's all worth it in the end, because there's definitely times where, I mean, everyone has self doubts, and like when I first started, I was really into kind of that like motivational stuff, like the Tony Robbins type stuff. And I feel like everyone is at some
Yep,
point on
we
their
were all
journey,
there.
like, and
Dave
I mean,
Ramsey.
a lot of the times, like, I mean, it can be helpful for some people, but I feel like a lot of the times it just keeps you running in circles. And like a lot of those people, they just sell like emotional highs to like sell tickets to their event or whatever. And I mean, it can be helpful, in certain time and places, but at the end of the day, a lot of your motivation just has to come from within. And every single person who goes on any sort of entrepreneurial venture of any sort just has horrendous self-doubt at certain times. Like they don't believe in this themselves. They think they're going to fail. They think they're a failure, all sorts of things. But in the end, if you stick with it, and as long as you don't just blindly like stick with it, like you're just gambling your money, risking a ton trading and just constantly blowing accounts. If you're being stupid, you should probably stop at least for a certain time period. But if you're doing all the right things, you're being disciplined, you're keeping your risk management solid, and you're continually making some form of progress, or at least attempting to, in a smart manner that would, follow like proper trading principles. I think the best piece of advice is just to keep with it, because everyone's going to go through those down periods. Everyone's going to doubt themselves, and everyone's going to have those struggles, and you have to find the internal motivation and discipline to stick with it. And when you do, it often is more rewarding than you could ever imagine. And so, and even in those like struggling times and the dark times, like you'll learn a lot about yourself and about life, and you'll come out with invaluable lessons. And so, just sticking with it, I think, is the best piece of advice.
Yeah, we got to face ourselves at some point. So if trading has to bring it out, so be it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that advice. Mine has always kind of just been, when I talk to my past self or whatever, it's just never give up. But I like yours. It's just keep going, even better. And
Mhm.
it is all worth it. And not just because of the riches we get, but I mean, also just because we overcome these obstacles that we kind of set for ourselves. We overcome them. We become stronger from them. And, that is the true definition of success.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what's something people seem to misunderstand about you?
No, this is a tough question. And I think one thing is like, I don't know if it's necessarily a misunderstanding, but when I like first started trading, and especially when I first became like profitable and then like left like my job and everything and went full time with it, I definitely was like very arrogant at the time, and I thought I was like all that and stuff. And I mean, I was definitely doing well for myself and doing well for someone my age. But I think part of it was like being a large fish in a small pond. And so I think through time, you just naturally get humbled and learn things, and realizing that like you're really a small fish in a really large pond. And I don't know, there's definitely just like people I haven't interacted since that time period. So I don't know, they might just have like the same view of arrogance. But I think just learning to always like be humble, but not in like the way where it's like self-deprecating humility or like false humility. Um, like being able to be proud of like what you've accomplished and done, but also remembering like on the overall grand scheme of things, like you're a small fish in a big pond.
Right.
There's always like more to do. And there's always people who are like going to be further along than you. And you have to, one, like keep working and keep going for those things, but also like don't get too caught up in your own accomplishments where you just like push away people around you or stuff like that.
Definitely. I mean, definitely got to stay humble and grateful, like gratitude for
Yeah.
sure. And not to make it a spiritual, religious God conversation, but when you realize that, you know, Elwin the avatar, Shane the avatar, this ego didn't really do it, that it came from a higher place, even if it's, you know, within yourself, a higher place within yourself that you may not even understand or whatever. You know, in those moments, you really got to give it all up and just bask in that gratitude, right? When we hit our big winners, when we crush it on whatever. And to me, like that's how we get more of it. That's how we communicate with the universe that this is good, bring more. So
Yeah.
definitely has practical application. And that's like, bro, that's one of the goals I want with this podcast, is because we talk about like Tony Robbins and all of the other guys who may offer motivational content like that. And I'm not saying Tony Robbins doesn't, because like I bought a Tony Robbins book one time, and before I knew like what bonds and mutual funds were, like he put 20% in bonds, 20% in this. So it at least got my gears turning on diversification and things of that nature in different investment vehicles. But I always want to bring some practical application. Like I want to motivate, but then I want to show like, okay, then what's the next step? How do we take this? Are you going to go do baby pips today and learn the Forex basics? Are you going to open a TD, Ameritrade? Are you going to watch trading videos? Whatever it may be that's going to set you on your way. Maybe you're just going to go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think or Grow Rich, something to enrich yourself. Yeah, but I kind of wanted to just wrap it up. Let me ask you this. Is there a specific dollar amount you're working towards? And you don't have to say it, but is there going to be a number that you hit and you say, well, that's it. I've won, nothing more to do?
It's for me, it's like a yes and a no. Like I have like a target like I want to reach essentially. Probably by like my mid 30s, I guess. And from there, it's one of those things where it's like up like if I stopped working, I'd definitely get bored. So like I'll always like be doing something. But I feel like I definitely have a number where it's like you can like take your foot off the gas a little bit, or even a decent amount, and kind of just like cruise from there. Um, but it's one of those things where I don't want to like stop and like just like live off of that for the rest of my life. Like I obviously want to keep working and keep doing. Once I hit a certain point, it's like definitely like easing off the gas pedal a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say the way that we are setting up our investments, like we will never have to worry about living off like our money dwindling because we're living off it just because of how we invest and, like dividends, and our investments are going to pay out. Right.
Yeah.
But you mentioned taking your foot off the gas, but still, having that passion for it. Cause I wonder, like you say that now, obviously I have a point where I want to be able to relax, but will that vacation end? And then will I be ready to get back to it? Like a Jeff Bezos or, Tesla, like did they, I'm not Tesla, Elon, did they have numbers? Cause the other day I was thinking, I was like, what if I had 50 million today? And the first thing I thought about, I was like, okay, I'd invest in my company and I open my studio. I get a Hollywood place where I can, make my own materials. I never thought like, oh, I would just chill and be good. Like the first thing I thought was, how will I divvy up this 50 million to invest in my businesses and my plans? So just
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like, I don't know. Once I hit like that point, I might like, or like, I definitely want to like keep doing what I'm doing. But when I say like easing off the gas pedal, maybe probably shifting the focus at that point more towards like more passion projects, like things where it's like, if this doesn't work out, if this just loses money, like it's fine because like I've reached my point where I like tried to reach. Um, but it's more like putting my energy towards like things I'm more passionate about, like, or like passion projects or things I've wanted to do forever, but like I didn't want like have the time and freedom to do now and stuff like that. Or even like starting a business that's unrelated and probably won't grow to the same point, but it's still something that like I really enjoy doing and stuff.
Right. And some nice philanthropy.
Yeah.
Because we have so much. We're so blessed. We're going to keep getting more and more. So it's only right. I definitely appreciate this. I have one more question to ask you, and I'm going to let you go. Did you have anything you want to add or, plug or recommend, anything like that you want to share with our audience today? We
I'd
may have hit on
say,
it.
yeah, I feel like we've probably hit on it. Just all the different pieces of advice given throughout um, everything. So I don't think there's anything really specific I would add extra.
All right. So last question for the Winlife podcast. What does winning at life mean to you?
Um, I think I think for me, it's essentially reaching a form of maximum efficiency, like in all areas of your life. So like maximizing like your wealth, but not doing so, and or for me, like keeping like your health, your wealth, your like social and relational life, just kind of like maximizing all those areas. So you're not like super wealthy, but you have horrible health and everyone hates you, or you're not just like super healthy, but you're broke and you just hang out on the beach and have a good time all day with no money, but like maximizing like all three areas of your life. So you have strong like relations and social life, but also strong or like good health, and also you're like wealthy. So kind of maximizing all three lanes, I'd say, is my definition of winning at life.
Hey, can't disagree with that one bit. All right. So thank you again. This is Elwin signing out. We had Shane Tollberg on the podcast today, and he dropped many gems. So make sure you absorb them, make sure you follow them, stay in touch, stay in contact as we continue to grow, and as we continue to win at life. So once again, thanks, Shane. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you soon.